In this episode, we focus on vulnerability scanning, which is one of the most common ways organizations find weaknesses before attackers do. A vulnerability is a flaw or misconfiguration that could allow something bad to happen, like an attacker gaining access, stealing data, or breaking a system's reliability. Scanning is the process of systematically checking systems to identify those weaknesses, and it can be done from the outside or from the inside, depending on what you are trying to learn. Internal scans look at systems as if you are already on the organization's network, while external scans look at what an outsider could see and touch from the internet. Effectively is the key word here, because scanning can be done poorly in ways that create misleading results, wasted effort, or dangerous assumptions. Beginners often hear the word scan and imagine a magical button that finds all problems, but real scanning is a disciplined practice that requires scope clarity, careful interpretation, and follow-through. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain what internal and external scans are, why they produce different insights, and what habits make scanning a reliable part of protecting a payment environment. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. The first big concept is that scanning is about exposure, meaning what parts of your systems are reachable and what they reveal when someone interacts with them. External scans simulate the view from the public internet, which is what a random attacker could see without any special access. That view includes public web servers, remote access gateways, exposed API endpoints, and anything else that can be reached from outside. Internal scans simulate the view from inside, which is what an attacker might see after compromising a workstation or what a malicious insider could see from within the network. Internal exposure is often much larger because many systems are not meant to be internet-facing but are still reachable from internal networks. Beginners should understand that both views matter, because attackers can start outside but aim to move inside, and internal weaknesses often become the stepping stones that turn a small breach into a major incident. In payment environments, the goal is to reduce exposures around the systems that store, process, or transmit card data, and to keep segmentation boundaries meaningful, which scanning helps validate. Vulnerability scans are not the same as penetration tests, and it helps to keep that distinction clear early. A scan primarily identifies potential weaknesses by comparing systems against known vulnerability patterns, missing updates, unsafe configurations, and exposed services. A penetration test goes further by attempting to exploit weaknesses to prove impact, but scanning typically stops at identification and risk rating. Beginners sometimes assume scanning is aggressive or destructive, but modern scanners are usually designed to be safe when configured properly, although misconfiguration or fragile systems can still be affected. The value of scanning is breadth and repeatability, because it can cover many systems regularly and provide consistent tracking over time. The limitation is that scans can produce false positives, meaning they report a weakness that is not actually exploitable, and false negatives, meaning they miss something that is real. Effective scanning, therefore, includes not just running the scan, but validating results and integrating them into a remediation process. Scope is one of the most important parts of conducting scans effectively, because scanning the wrong things or missing the right things leads to false confidence. Scope means defining which systems, network segments, and addresses will be scanned, and doing so in a way that reflects reality rather than outdated diagrams. External scope usually includes all public-facing assets, but beginners should learn that organizations sometimes forget about assets like old test sites, subdomains, cloud services, or third-party hosted components that are still reachable. Internal scope should consider the parts of the internal network that can reach sensitive systems, including management networks and administrative pathways. Scope also includes the idea of ownership, meaning each scanned asset should have a responsible team that can act on findings. If a scan finds a vulnerability on a system nobody claims, remediation stalls, and the same problem returns scan after scan. Effective scanning begins with a clean, current inventory and a deliberate definition of what is in and what is out. Frequency matters because vulnerabilities appear over time, not only at a single moment. New vulnerabilities are discovered in software, new configurations are introduced during change, and new systems are deployed, all of which can create exposure quickly. If scanning is too rare, an organization may remain unaware of serious weaknesses for long periods. If scanning is too frequent without good processes, teams can drown in repeated findings without clear priorities. Beginners should notice that frequency should match the pace of change and the sensitivity of the environment, and payment environments often require consistent scanning because of the risks and expectations around card data. External scanning is especially important because internet-facing systems are constantly probed by attackers, and even short windows of exposure can be exploited. Internal scanning matters because internal weaknesses can remain hidden for long periods if nobody checks, and attackers who gain a foothold often rely on those weaknesses to move laterally. Effective programs pick a cadence that is sustainable and predictable, and they ensure scans run after significant changes, not only on a calendar. Credentials and access levels strongly affect what an internal scan can see, and beginners should understand this because it changes scan quality. A scan without credentials often sees only what can be discovered from network responses, like open ports and version banners, which can be incomplete or misleading. A scan with appropriate credentials can check installed software versions, missing patches, configuration settings, and local security policies, which can reveal deeper issues. The trade-off is that credentialed scans require careful handling of privileged access, because scanners may need elevated rights to inspect systems properly. This creates a separate risk that must be managed through access control, strong authentication, and limiting what scanner accounts can do. Beginners can think of this as the difference between inspecting a car by looking through the windows versus opening the hood and checking the engine. Both views are useful, but the deeper inspection needs more access and more care. Interpreting results is where scanning often fails, because a raw report can look like a list of scary problems without context. Effective interpretation means separating critical issues from minor ones, confirming whether a reported vulnerability actually applies, and understanding how it relates to real risk. Risk is not only about severity scores, but also about exposure and impact, such as whether the vulnerable system is internet-facing, whether it is part of the payment environment, and whether exploitation would lead to sensitive data access. Beginners should learn that remediation decisions are not made in a vacuum. They connect to business operations, change windows, and system dependencies. Some findings can be fixed quickly by applying updates or changing a configuration, while others require planning, testing, and coordination. Effective scanning includes triage, which is the process of sorting findings into categories like fix immediately, fix soon, accept temporarily with compensating controls, or investigate further. Without triage, teams either panic and break systems or ignore everything and break security. False positives and false negatives are normal realities, and effective programs have habits that manage both. When a scanner flags a vulnerability, validation may involve checking whether the vulnerable version is truly installed, whether a patch has already been applied in a way the scanner did not detect, or whether the configuration is actually exploitable from relevant networks. When a scan comes back clean, validation may involve confirming the scanner had access to all targets, that credentials worked, and that no important segments were accidentally excluded. Beginners should understand that scanning is a measurement tool, and measurement tools can be wrong if used incorrectly or if conditions change. A common failure mode is treating scan results as absolute truth rather than as signals that require human judgment. Another failure mode is ignoring scan errors, like timeouts or unreachable hosts, which can hide the very systems that need the most attention. Effective scanning is therefore paired with quality checks that confirm coverage and reliability. External scans have some special considerations because they interact with public-facing systems that may be protected by filters, content delivery networks, or rate limiting. These protections can sometimes block scanners or change what the scanner sees, which can lead to incomplete results if not accounted for. External scans also tend to focus on exposed services, encryption configurations, web application weaknesses, and known vulnerabilities in internet-facing software. Beginners should notice that the most important external findings are often about reducing attack surface, such as closing unnecessary ports, removing unused services, and ensuring strong authentication for remote access. External scanning is also closely tied to asset discovery, because the first step is knowing what is exposed to the internet, including domains, subdomains, and cloud assets. An organization that cannot confidently list its external assets is likely to have blind spots that attackers can find. Effective external scanning, therefore, includes continuous awareness of what is exposed, not just periodic checking of what you think is exposed. Internal scans also have unique challenges because internal networks can be complex, segmented, and full of legacy systems. A scanner might need to be placed in specific network zones to see what matters, especially if segmentation is intended to block access between zones. Beginners should understand that if a scanner is placed in the wrong place, it might see too much or too little, leading to misleading conclusions. Internal scanning can also reveal vulnerabilities that are not directly exploitable from the internet, but are still important because they enable lateral movement, privilege escalation, or persistence. For payment environments, internal scanning helps ensure that systems in scope are hardened and that supporting systems do not become easy stepping stones. Internal scans also help detect misconfigurations like default credentials, weak services, or outdated software that might otherwise go unnoticed. Effective internal scanning therefore respects network design and uses scanning locations that reflect realistic attacker pathways and realistic administrative access routes. A crucial part of conducting scans effectively is connecting scanning to remediation, because findings only help if they lead to fixes. Remediation includes patching software, changing configurations, removing unnecessary services, updating insecure protocols, and sometimes redesigning how a system is exposed. Beginners should learn that remediation must be tracked, not just discussed, because repeated findings are a sign that fixes did not happen or did not stick. Tracking also helps teams see progress over time and identify systemic issues, like a patching process that is too slow or a configuration standard that is not being followed. Effective programs assign owners, set deadlines based on risk, and verify that fixes worked by rescanning or validating changes. In payment environments, where evidence and control consistency matter, the ability to show that vulnerabilities are identified and addressed is part of maintaining trust. Scanning without remediation is like reading a weather forecast and still walking into a storm without an umbrella. Finally, effective scanning includes communication and realism, because scanning is sometimes misunderstood as a judgment rather than a safety practice. Teams may feel blamed when findings appear, but the healthier mindset is that findings are information that helps everyone improve. Clear communication about what scanning measures, what it does not measure, and how results will be prioritized prevents panic and reduces conflict. Beginners should understand that perfect security is not the goal. Reducing risk through consistent habits is the goal. When scanning is well run, it becomes a regular checkup that catches issues early, rather than a crisis-triggering event that happens only after something goes wrong. Internal and external vulnerability scans work together by giving you two perspectives on exposure, and both perspectives are essential for protecting payment systems over time. When scope is clear, coverage is verified, findings are interpreted thoughtfully, and remediation is tracked, vulnerability scanning becomes an effective, reliable control rather than a noisy report that nobody trusts.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.